Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into another LFM stream, and the first stream of 2024. We are back for Season 13 here in the Case King Pro Series, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be back with this championship and how incredible the grid is looking for tonight. Season 12 was an absolute cracker, going down to the wire with drama from start to finish throughout the entire season. Luke Whitehead eventually taking the championship in the finale round of Season 12, becoming the second two-time Pro Series champion after, of course, Marco Bischoff. And I can tell you, with the grid that we have for this evening, it is going to be an absolute cracker. We are here at Imola, a legendary, hardcore, historical circuit, which is going to play host for the season opener. And with the talented lineup that we have on the grid this evening, that I have no doubt we are going to have the same incredible action, chaos, drama, adrenaline-fueled stuff that we have come to know and love from the Pro Series. So many of you coming here for the first time. Big warm welcome to you. Happy New Year, everybody. And I hope that you are excited to dive into the world of LFM for over the course of the next 12 months. Because in Season 13, kicking things underway, we have so much here to offer. Of course, the Pro Series back once again with incredible prizes on the line with this one. But also, of course, the rest of the world of ACC, daily racing, endurance series, all sorts of racing goodness. And, of course, the further integration of AC1, where you can get yourself involved in a lot of incredible stuff over there. You can do Formula 3, Mazda MX-5s if you want the kind of most chaotic form of single manufacturer racing that I think you can kind of get, and so much stuff to offer on all of that. So big warm welcome to all of you, and I can tell you that if this is your first time joining us for an evening of action in the Pro Series, buckle in because it is going to be incredible. I have no doubt about that. And before we get too deeply into tonight's action, you may be wondering, this incredible pool of talented drivers, as well as just the incredible world of LFM itself, why are they all here? What are they competing for? Well, I can tell you the prizes on the line for this series are bigger and better than ever. If you take the top prize away from this championship, you'll be walking away with a 57-inch G9 monitor, one of those wonderful ultra-wide displays. I'd love to have one of those on my rig, but unfortunately I don't possess the talent in order to be able to compete for one of those, but the lucky winner of that, I'm sure, will have an incredible amount of racing goodness with that. P2, don't feel too bad if you come away with that, because €1,500 of Moser Racing vouchers brought to you by caseking.de will be going your way, and you can get your hands on some incredible sim racing equipment. And if you finish third in the championship, an Azatec La Prima wheelbase and steering wheel for you as well to add to your wonderful sim racing collection, and you can really explore these fantastic titles to the best of their abilities. And like I say, for this evening, Imola, an incredible circuit, such a fantastic layout, so many opportunities for action and drama, and I cannot wait to get into this one, because I tell you what, with the grid that we have going on, we'll take a look at some of those names in just a moment. Even the names in Split 2 and Split 3 are some names that we would know from the Pro Series scene in the top split as of the last couple of seasons, and even they haven't quite made the cut on this occasion. That is how incredible the skill level and talent of this grid for this evening is going to be. But 16 turns of action-packed goodness, almost 5 kilometers of this Italian circuit to be dealing with, barreling on down the start-finish straight and into the Variante Tamburello chicane to open up the sequence. You need a car that is good in high speed and also deals with the bumps through there as well, and we've got such an incredible mix of manufacturers on the grid this evening. They're making their way through the Villeneuve chicane and into the Tosa hairpin. Surprising opportunities for overtakes potentially there. Piratella, big commitment corner, and you come over the grass and down into Aqua Minerale. Such a hard braking zone in that double right-hander, and then very tricky chicane coming up as you make your way through Variante Alta. Very easy to get track limit warnings around here. And a good morning to you in the chat as well. I don't know where you are in the world, but so fantastic to have such a widespread audience joining us through the Ravazza final couple of corners. New Zealand, wonderful to have such reach on that. Big warm welcome to you, and then closing out a lap for that one. So such a wonderful, brilliant circuit, and I'll tell you what, that start-finish straight is not, it's kind of one of the more wiggly of start-finish straights that you'll come across in the world of ACC, but I'll tell you what, that toe down towards the first chicane is going to provide some incredible opportunities. We can have weather drama as well, all sorts of action. 60 minutes of racing will be getting underway very, very shortly, and we were making our way into qualifying. Of course, we're 15 minutes for these drivers to set their best lap, set the grid for this race and try to make their way through the field. Of course, qualifying isn't everything, but when you have such fine margins between these drivers, we've seen positions being divided up by a matter of thousands between these cars at times. And when you put all of that together, you really need to try to make sure that you get yourself into a good position early on in this race. Try to avoid that mid-pack chaos and find your place in the pack of cars and see how these guys are going to get on. So we will head on over into that in just a second and see how our drivers are getting on. So they'll have a few minutes of practice before we get into qualifying, so they can dial in their setups, make those final few adjustments, and try to see if they get themselves into a happy spot with their car. Because, of course, you need a car that is balanced between qualifying pace and race pace as well. They can use two different setups, but you need to be comfortable between both of those environments, because a great qualifying can very much give you a decent advantage in terms of that starting position, but even in a relatively short space of time of 60 minutes in the world of GT racing, race pace still very, very pitiful. How many nationalities do we have in Split 1? Well, let's have a little bit of a gander for the entry list this evening, but I would imagine we're probably looking at around maybe 14, 15 different nationalities, very much widespread, because we have those representing from Germany, the UK, Lithuania, we have those from the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Canada, and see for those that maybe have been with us here at LFM for a little bit longer, if I can work out who this budding Tier 1 Canadian is. We have those from Latvia, Italy, Finland, South Africa as well, France, Ireland, Sweden, Poland. I'm having to go through my flag knowledge on all of this. We've also got those from Chile and more as well. So such an incredible widespread talent in this field. Such a fantastic grid that we have this evening. So we'll be switching over in just a moment and seeing how our drivers are going to be getting on for this evening's action. And if this is your first time coming to the world of the Pro Series, already over 200 of you here, I want to say a big thank you for all the support that we had over here in 2023. It's only been a few months here over on Twitch, but it's been an incredible few months at that. We have almost 4,000 subscribers over on the YouTube channel, where the VODs from these streams are being uploaded if you want to catch up with all of the action that we have here during Season 13, and almost 1,400 of you following here as well on the Twitch channel. So a big warm welcome, and I cannot wait to dive into the action that our drivers are going to be putting on for this evening as we look to get into all of this action-packed goodness for this evening and see exactly what our drivers are going to be putting together in this one. So we'll see how it all looks to play out for this evening. Right now, we have some pretty handy-dandy names at the top of the field. We have the likes of that resident Canadian I was talking about, Jade Hutchinson, making his way over to the Aston Martin. Nicholas Huben in the server for Unicorns of Love. Dara McCormack, the man that took a dominant victory at the end of last season, and he returns in the Mercedes. Watch out for that car tonight. That car has tended to be very, very quick around this circuit. But, of course, with the community-driven BOP and all of your hard work and efforts, that brings all the racing so close together. We have other names very fast indeed. Kolosov, Carpenter, Mr. Carpet. Unfortunately, and I'm extremely disappointed in the Grandpax engineering driver, doesn't seem to have made his way into a Bentley, which I like I say, I am very disappointed, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in the chat as well. He took that car last season. He very nearly managed to win some races with it, but unfortunately, he has switched back to the Lamborghini. But we'll forgive him. He's a very kind chap. Tinko van der Velde, of course, back in the Pro Series as well. your Season 11 champion. Who else do we have? Of course, your reigning champion, Luke Whitehead. George Boothby saw some support for him already in the chat. Philip Menard, who ended last season brilliantly in that very car, the LFM powered Ferrari at Watkins Glen. Formidable defense against Marco Bischoff. Grant Karekas in the server as well. He's in a Ferrari, new car for him. See how he gets on. Nils Nialt back in the BMW for BS Plus competition. Lois Rainier, the Frenchman as well. Marco Bischoff, your two-time Pro Series champion. Aidan Walsingham, a winner in his own right. Veloce driver now over in the Mercedes as well. We've got Dario Imola, very fast Italian. Jardier back in the Pro Series again. Sticking with that, McLaren looking to eke out some more pace. Noah Reeder, Sasha Vassner, Luke Addison, Valentin Barrier, Maciej Malinowski returns to the series and retakes that Veloce Porsche outlook that Luke Whitehead used to his advantage to take the Season 12 championship. It'll be incredibly interesting to see how Maciej gets on this evening. We know how much of a weapon he can be in that car. And of course also beloved Samir Foch, who himself has made a bit of a switch over to the Porsche as well. So really interesting to see how things have changed between Season 12 and Season 13 of these guys' car choices. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that plays out. Paul Lobmeyer in the Porsche gets himself to the top of the timing sheets, and the disappointment and despair already lurking in the chat that no Ferrari for the likes of Samir Foch. He's abandoned that car for the first time in a very long time, as obviously I think had a little bit of enough of I think at one point when before we had the 296 in the world of ACC, I do believe that he generated the term the bouncing donkey, if I'm not mistaken, rather than the prancing horse of course, the famous Italian outfit. That was back when we had our pre-1.4 physics and the whole kind of world of the suspension mechanics within ACC changed and adapted somewhat to what we now have, and very much Imola is a circuit where you would have seen time and time again those things playing into effect. So really interesting to see how all of that has developed and changed over the last couple of seasons. Final couple of minutes of this practice session to go, and Teemu Karppinen setting the benchmark at the top of the time machines in that Grip Packs Engineering Lamborghini, and on a 40.620 at the moment. But I would keep an eye on these times as we move our way along, because whilst in practice it may start to build up a little bit of initial picture of which manufacturers, which drivers are looking dialed in and on the pace, all can change once we get into that qualifying session, because we don't know exactly what type of practice these guys are doing right now. You get some drivers that are looking to optimize their qualifying setup. Some guys will be on race fuel and tweaking elements of tyre pressures for the temperatures that they are in at the moment. You never quite know what they are working on at any given time, so very much can still all to play for. But as it stands right now, we've got a pretty handy mix of cars at the top of the timing sheet, and I would hope it stays very much like that once we get into the race, because that certainly adds that little bit of extra spice, drama and action as Teemu Karppinen practicing his pit entry, an important one with this one. It's a little bit of a funky one. You have to be quite aggressive over to the right-hand side of the circuit, and sometimes that sneaks up on you, especially if that pit board goes a little bit astray in the opening segments of the race, as cars starting to box and close out the practice session, as we see Nils Steinbrenner, who's gone from strength to strength over the last few seasons, back over in the BMW. Be an interesting car, see what he can do in that one. It's, much like the Aston Martin, the BMW has always been one where you can really hammer this one around a circuit. It's quite a forgiving car. It gives you a lot of encouragement to really wring the neck out of the thing. And sometimes, especially when we have mixed conditions, so trickier conditions, the BMW, the Aston Martin, the 296 as well, quite a stable platform, that's when those cars really start to come into effect. But with the talent level that we have in this field, trust me when I say that even some of the trickier cars, these guys will be extracting the absolute maximum from, and will be driving extremely quickly. Steinbrenner up by a tenth of a second as he looks to close out this practice session. I believe the last man to be on a time at the moment as he will look to cross the start finish line and get us underway for 15 minutes of qualifying to kick off the first qualifying session in the Pro Series for 2024 as everyone starts to barrel out onto the circuit and get underway for this one. You can see all very much trying to fight for space. We've got a 3 wide moment in the pit lane and we haven't even got started for this one. Whether or not we have anything like that on the opening lap, I feel like we could, because it is a very wide entry in towards the first chicane, and that big slipstream effect is going to be playing into effect. You can fit 4 cars almost over on the entry. Not that I'm trying to encourage these guys to do so, because I want them to get through cleanly and effectively over on the first lap. But as we know, these guys, they push each other to their limits, and if things do go a little bit wrong, we have a wonderful team of stewards that are watching and waiting in the background, and may have to put out a few penalties here and there, but it does keep these guys in check during the course of these races. Aidan Walsingham then being the first car out on circuit. We'll go on board with him as he looks to get his lap underway in just a moment. But this Mercedes, at one point in previous BOPs, of course the custom BOP being applied to this field in the Pro Series, but this car with that fantastic TC ABS system, suspension very, very good on this car as well. A lot of the curbs in the opening sector of this chicane as well. It's just a car that will glide over these curves. We'll try to grab a couple of different onboards of the Mercedes versus the likes of the McLarens, the Porsches, some of those other cars that might be a little bit less settled over these elements, because the amount of time that you can gain around this circuit just by being consistent and confident over some of those corners is absolutely tremendous. That's almost what you need to dedicate your entire setup to, is making sure that you can get that one together. Yeah, get your guesses into the chat right now for who's going to take pole position, but whilst we're sorting that out, we'll go on board with this big band V8 power Mercedes as Aidan Walsingham starting at the first lap of 2024 in qualifying for the Case King Pro Series as he heads down towards the Tamburello chicane. Tries to spot his braking point just before the entry curb on the right hand side, clipping the first apex, trying to use as much of it as he can as the Mercedes wobbles its way over and flies on through, using all the exit curve on the exit of turn 4, then using a little bit on entry in towards the Villeneuve chicane, chopping over that first curve, trying to eat this up as much as possible, opening up the width of this circuit, carrying momentum through now in towards the Tosa hairpin, using second gear, give it a little bit of extra rotation, and then blast his way out of there, up towards Piratella, over to the left-hand side so you can straighten up the braking zone in towards this one. Slightly blind on entry, not much time to think about. You're turning in for it, be careful of that grass on the right-hand side. Third gear there, using as much of that exit curve as possible, but trying not to go over that one, because very easy to get track numbers there. Acromillerari, tricky through here, down to second gear, using every little bit of curve that you can possibly get away with over the exit, trying to keep it within the boundaries, and now up towards this very tricky, very anti-outer chicane. And now clipping this first apex, jumping over that one, and Mercedes, look at that, second apex, absolutely eats that one up, no problem at all. Very nice on the power. Aidan Walsingham now barreling down towards Ravazza. It's very tricky, very poignant double left-hander. Very, very important in the race to get this one right, because it opens up the opportunities for the overtakes. Heading down this long start finish straight, a little bit wide of the apex. And to steer on the entry for them. Mercedes made those front tyres getting a little bit toasty as he heads towards the start-finish straight. And closing out the lap. And for Aidan Walsingham, what's it going to be as he crosses the line? 40.567. That's the benchmark. Jardier 4/10s down. Imola as he heads towards the line. Invalidated his lap, but he did a 0.427 as Vietschoker 0.70. As they all start to head towards time. And Teemu Karppinen was looking very, very quick. A 40.3 for the Lamborghini. Of course, the Raging Bull on home soil around here. Albin Manson, impressive effort from him in one of the Mercedes as well. Noah Reader gets himself at Tara McCormack, a mighty lap time from the Williams Esports driver. The Irishman continuing his form from the end of season 12, almost into the 39s immediately as he heads through in that number 28 car. And that man, the young Irishman on a mission, Luke Whitehead, your reigning champion, another one of these Mercedes. As there's your first 39, and it's come from the Ferrari of all things. Home soil, no more the bouncing donkey, the prancing horse in full form, George Boothby in that 296. does a 0.8, and Niels Narks in the BS Plus competition. BMW looking quick as well. Very distinctive livery on board that number 7 car. The German driver, he was in contention for the win on a couple of occasions last season. Didn't quite go his way, but Wily Old Fox is Niels, the German legend of sim racing community. And when push comes to shove, when in those very, very pivotal moments of a race, this is a man who has a wealth of experience behind the wheel that can use every trick of the trade that he has developed over his career and really bring it together when it matters. Philip Manar, the South African, getting the number 36 car, currently into P5, continuing that fantastic pace that we saw him have at Watkins Glen at the end of season 12. As the likes of Tinko van der Velde slots himself into P7. Someone else just went and improved. I think that was Imola getting his second bid in the McLaren. 40.092 for the Italian. And we're trying to find a bit more pace. Of course, recent recruit to that Veloce Academy team took victory a couple of seasons ago in the Lamborghini, switching over to the British outfit, stamping on the brakes. Look at the way the car pitches through there. Got to be so careful at controlling the rake, the dynamics of these GT cars. They have a lot of downforce, they have a lot of pace, and so does Luke Whitehead, 0.02 of a second behind George Boothby, but watch out, 2/10 up is the British driver. He's not taken a championship despite being the winningest driver in the Case King Pro Series, and he once again looks to start off the season strongly at 0.622. Niels Narks improves as well, goes to a low 0.8. Grant Karekas into the 39s as well. Jade Hutchinson, the Canadian, in the number 10 car. That Aston Martin looking quick as well, taking a different bit of a choice. Not a car that we see all too often in most recently, but very, very likely to be competitive around here as well. Good top speed achievable in that one and able to make his way through a field. We've praised Jade Hutchinson multiple times for his racecraft. Very patient driver and often reaping the rewards. So keep an eye on that man once we get into the race. Many cars still improving. Big improvement for Aidan Walsingham as well in this Mercedes. 0.6 of a second up, looking to try to get into 39s. Lost a little bit on exit. Again, out of the final turn. He is going to improve, but I don't think it's going to be towards the pointy end. It's still a pretty solid lap, though, of 40.040 from him. Darren McCormack on his last lap did a 39.945, but he invalidated. Now coming out of Ravazza himself in that Mercedes, getting a little bit of the slipstream off that Sprouse Esport McLaren. Just up here, Nicholas Hoban goes into P7 now for the Unicorns of Love car. Was Darren McCormack do as he heads towards the timing beam, and it's not an improvement for the Irishman, so bit of work to do. 7.5 minutes left on the clock, though, so half of this session left to go. As Timu Karpinen, support for him in the chat. The Grip Hacks Engineering Lamborghini back into the top 5. Cody Sherritt, impressive stuff in the Genesis Esports 296 then, as he gets that number 38 car inside of the top 5. Got Hutchinson again improving. He's a 10th up, looking to get into those 39s. A Canadian, what's he going to do as he crosses the line? It's good enough for P4 from the number 10 car and does an identical time to Luke Whitehead. And other than George Boothby, look at the deltas from P2 down to P... Well, basically down to top 10. Look at that, from P2 to P10. We've got two pairs of two cars that have got identical lap times. That's P3, P4, and P9, P10. And the gap between P2 and P10 is just over a 10th. Rapid times inside these 140 benchmarks from a lot of these drivers. I tell you what, though, Iamolo's going incredibly quickly. He was purple for a brief moment there. 2/10s up in the McLaren. We've seen this car have a good pace around this circuit before as he heads towards the line. What's it going to be for the number 19 guy? Imola hitting the timing beam, and it's good enough right now for the front row. And the Italian gets himself into a good, solid position there. We'll see what he can do. Grant Karekas improve as well. Got a little bit of traffic to deal with. Heads through a chicane. I look fairly settled through there. Looks like he's got that car set up nicely. Very nicely indeed. That was a monstrous chicane from the Lithuanian, of course, Pro Series champion a few seasons ago now. Coming down in towards Ravazza. The car should be pretty nicely through there. Maybe a little bit too much on the entry, but he seems to have got it settled nicely. Good rotation out of the final corner. 3/10 up is the improvement, showing purple as it stands. Going very close against his Veloce teammate. Number 3 car, will he go towards P1? Or is he going to be good enough for the front row? And it's only good enough for the front row by 3,000ths of a second. Relative to George Boothby. 5.5 minutes left on the clock and plenty of opportunities. Things change. Marco Bischoff getting good toe, and he uses that to a maximum effect up to P3 for the number 1 car. Of course, a man that was number 1 in the world of LFM for so long. If you're wondering where these number plates come from, this is based on their relative elo within the LFM system. And George Boothby recently became the number 1 driver. Marco Bischoff quite clearly has been a little bit busy over the winter period during the off-season. Has reclaimed that position. And currently right now, we have the top 3 drivers in this server in those top 3 positions. Not quite in running order, but very much showing the reasons as to why they have the licenses that they do. Thank you for the kind words, Brandon. Welcome back into the chat yourself. I am so excited to be back here for Season 13. It's just looking more incredible than ever, bigger, better than ever. And right now, you see the 2 Williams Esports Mercedes getting a little bit tripped up over one another, but Dara McCormack improving 3/10 up on his previous lap time, trying to get into those 39s. Maybe not looking quite as formidable and in control as we saw at Watkins Glen, but bear in mind he didn't qualify on pole position. It was Jack Alexander that was dominant in that qualifying session there. But the Mercedes driver flying on down towards Ravazza, heading in towards this first apex. There's a real sense of flow around this circuit. In these final couple of corners, it's not quite one single movement, but you very much want to have one that feeds into the other. 3/10 up, down to 2/10, losing a little bit of time on exit. It will be a first 39 though for Dara McCormack. Where did it slot him in though? P4 gets into the 0.7s for the Irishman as drivers continuing to find improvements. As apparently we've got McCoskey, unfortunately, down at the bottom of the order at the moment. Hasn't quite managed to set a representative lap so far. Nicholas Huben finding a little bit of time in the opening sector. Opportunity him. There's the other unicorns, the love car behind him. That's Sasha Vassner, who currently sits in... If I can find him on the timing sheet. Whereabouts is Sasha? There he is. P15, so just a couple of positions behind his fellow teammate. But definitely a lot more Mercedes in this season. Let's have a little bit of a gander at the manufacturers list, because there you go, we've got Ferraris currently now first and second in the grid as it stands. McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, BMWs, Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, Porsches up there as well. Honda, Marco Schada down in 24th position. So a really good mix of cars in this grid. And whilst we may be slightly disappointed, or me very specifically is disappointed that we don't have any Boatleys in the server, maybe we'll have one courageous driver that makes their way into top split later on in the season. Meanwhile, 2.5 minutes left to go. And George Boothby absolutely on the attack, gone board with the man that is topping the timing sheets and going exceptionally quick as it stands right now, heading through Aqua Minerali. Maybe a little bit wide on the entry, invalidated it on the exit. So this won't be the improvement that he needs, but up until that mistake, he'd found 0.2 of a second, mightily quick from him. Hutchinson invalidates as well. Oh, there we go. I think that's why. Kicking up the sand on the exit, but he's looking to get a better time in as well. So difficult. Once you approach the limit around this circuit, trying to keep it within those boundaries is so tricky. And in the race as well, there's so much pressure. Try to avoid getting one of those drive-through penalties from corner cuts. Obviously, incredibly damaging to your race. Niels Niox invalidates his lap as well. He was up by 0.2 of a second. So a lot of pace from these guys. Niels Niox, bring out a yellow flag. I thought he'd gone back to the pits for a second there, but this will be his last flying lap attempt. George Boothby, if he's got enough fuel in the car, might be able to get 2 more in. But this is approaching the final batch of laps from some of these cars. As once again, flying on down towards the Villeneuve chicane, using everything that he can get away with. Swinging it from one apex to the other, but there's a mistake, so George Boothby, no further improvement from him. The benchmark is a 0.622, and that is Grant Carreca's in the wall. So right now, the top 3 cars, Boothby, Carreca's, McCormack, no further improvements from them. Marco Bischoff on a lap. That looks a little bit messy, though, the sand being kicked up through the first apex. but still opportunities to improve. Nils Narks in the opening sector as well. Luke Whitehead will start no higher than P9, one of the drivers that became absolutely known for his formidable qualifying pace last season, will start no higher up than P9. This time the reigning champion, Maciej Malnowski, finding him some time in the Porsche. Well, no, Reader briefly going purple as he heads through Aqua Minerali, losing a little bit of the advantage, though. And I don't think right now that there is anyone on a lap, unless they have an absolutely mighty closing stage to the lap that is looking to contend with George Busby's lap time. He may have just about managed to lock out that Ferrari Veloce 1-2. As other cars look to cross the line. Philip Menard, Maciej Malnowski, he improves in the Porsche. Good enough for P6. Cody Sherratt, fantastic effort from the South African. 1-2-3 for Ferrari as it stands. Nils Narks coming into the final couple of corners as well. Let's see what he can do. He's finding a little bit of lap time as it stands. Still registering Maciej is on a lap. I don't know if he crossed the line in time to get that lap in. We'll check in on him in a minute. Nils Narks, though, heading towards time beam. I think it's going to be a small improvement. It is, but it's only good enough for P9 as it stands. As we look further down the order, we've got the likes of Nils Steinbrenner in that BMW M4. Luke Addison as well coming into the very anti-outer chicane. Seeing what some of these cars can do. Closing out these laps. Maciej does seem to be still registered as on a lap, and right now he is going very, very quickly. So maybe that Porsche... Oh, he's just invalidated. He's just invalidated the lap, so Maciej won't be able to improve from P6. I'm not sure we're going to have too many other changes in the order. We've got Valentin Barrier is getting a beautiful tow of Marco Schade in that Honda at the moment. He comes into Ravazza now, the Frenchman. He's been up at the pointy end of this Pro Series grid on a couple of occasions, trying to see if he can move his way up the order in that Yassit Aston Martin. Number 11 car gets that tow all the way to the line. He's going to move himself, I think, quite significantly, and he gets himself up into P17. Yeah, that's the... My goodness, that's the benchmark of 39.8, and only good enough for P17. And in the end, that was the qualifying session there. Incredible stuff from all of our drivers in that one, and we are going to be switching over ready for some action-packed goodness in just a moment. My goodness, what a fantastic qualifying session. But George Busby doing it again, but in a different car this time, but making it Ferrari 1, 2, and 3. The Mercedes at the beginning of that session, they look like the car to beat, but in the end, the prancing horses were the ones to be in, and George Busby doing one of the things that he absolutely does best and making that car shine on one lap pace. We'll go through our starting grid for this one in just a moment. But Veloce starting off the season brilliantly. Of course, they closed out the Season 12 Championship taking 1 and 2 in the standings between Luke Whitehead and George Busby. And now it is George Busby leading the way with Grant Careca's Pro Series champion of Season 10, I do believe, back when the Porsche was a mighty, mighty car to be utilising there. But he gets himself onto the front row, and I imagine he'll be pretty happy about that one, getting himself into a good position at the start of this championship. And this one is certainly going to be one to watch. I have no doubt about that. Of course, we've seen already how talented, how tight the field is between all of these guys. And with the types of cars that we have, Imola being such an incredible, incredible track, it is going to be a fantastic one indeed. So we'll see how George Busby is able to get on in this one. Is just waiting for my overlay graphic to refresh so we can make our way through the grid in just a moment and see exactly how they line up for this evening's action. George Busby. I think we have Kylo, one of our beloved regulars, in the chat once again, and I'm sure that he's already providing quite a few statistics in the chat already. Of course, one of our go-to fact manners, Redwan Masood. Big warm welcome to the raid of 189 viewers from over there. Fantastic! Wow, what a lovely, lovely welcome from you. Big warm welcome to everybody joining the chat now. We're about to get underway for 60 minutes of action in just a moment here at Imola. And my goodness, there we go. Big welcome to all of you there. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Red One. Nice to see you. And be fantastic if we could have you in the Pro Series top split once again. Be fantastic to have you on the grid. George Boothby takes another pole position. Grant Skoreka's P2. Cody Sherritt making it for eyes 1, 2, and 3. With Dara McCormack in P4. Marco Bischoff, the two-time Pro Series champion, #1 man on the LFM platform. He starts in P5. Maciej Malinowski returning to the Pro Series. Gets that Porsche into P6. Dario Imola, the Italian, in that McLaren. He starts in P7. Maybe would have wanted a little bit more from that. Looked like he had a little bit extra in the attack. Phil Minar continuing his good form from the end of Season 12. Gets that 296 firmly inside the top 10 and gets himself into P8. Tinko van der Velde, the Pro Series champion of Season 11 in the Mercedes car. He starts in P9 with Niels Narks rounding out the top 10. Starting ahead of this man who deserves a shout-out of his own, Eric Gessel in the number 40 car. Of course, if you see a high number plate car in a very low-numbered position, that means they've effectively gone above and beyond the expectations of where their ELO would have expected them to be placed in this grid. So that number 40 car starting P11, great stuff from him. Noah Reader, P12, your reigning champion, Luke Whitehead, in that Mercedes, not his greatest qualifying, starts in P13. Jade Hutchison, the Canadian, only good enough for P14, the Aston Martin in the end, but watch out for that car in the race. Timo Karppinen, fan favourite in the chat in that Grip Packs Engineering Lamborghini as the engines all start to get fired up because we'll be going racing very, very shortly. Felix Brudern in the number 24 car. He starts in P16 with Valentin Barrier, the Yassi driver, the Frenchman, starting in P17. Aidan Walsingham, the next of those Veloce Mercedes cars. He starts in P18 with Nicholas Huben in the Unicorns of Luck, a very distinct livery combination. Support there for the French compatriot Valentin in that P17 spot. As Brandon Reyes closes out the top 20 in that McLaren. Paul Lobmeyer, next car, he's chopped and changed over the curbs in the formation lap then. Adrian Strozer, the next of those Veloce cars. He starts in 22nd position, that V8. Oh, it sounds so good. Unfortunately, we don't have the Bentley V8. I do like that one a little bit more, but I can take the Mercedes one. That's okay. At least we've got a few of those in the field. Luke Anderson, the next of the South Africans. He starts 23rd. Sasha Vassner, 24th in the next Unicorns of Love car with Mattia De Campo in that 25th position in the number 15 McLaren. And you have Dennis Wietschorker, who's been showing some good pace at the end of Season 12. Let's see what he can achieve at the beginning of Season 13. Lois Rainier, the next of the Frenchman. Marco Schada will be lining up behind him in that Honda, of course, for Yeet Esports. The lone Honda in this grid, I do believe. And then we have Albin Manson, the first of the Swedes in the server, 29th place in that number 30 car. And then we have Vladislav Kolosov in the number 17 car. Let's see what he can do as he looks to try to progress his way through the field. Oliver Martins, next of the Aston Martins. He starts in 31st position with Abba Santama starting in 32nd place. My goodness, there's almost 400 of you. What an incredible turnout for the opening round Season 13. And I hope you're looking forward to this one, because I certainly am. Santama followed up by Nils Steinbrenner in 33rd position. Voltek Neuwirth back in the top split of the Case King Pro Series. Kevin Schwartz lines up behind him in that very nice iced cool liveried Mercedes there in the number 20 car. He'll be joined behind by Sean Tempest in the number 21 McLaren. And driver's been in the BMW for a couple of seasons now, making the switch over to McLaren as everybody starts to get themselves into formation. Nikolai Polikov starts in 37th place. Krzysztof Makowski improved up 38th place in the end of that qualifying session. He'll be followed up by good friend Jardier in that number 8 car. And then closing out the grid will be Samir Foch as they all bundle on down to get things underway, ready for Season 13. George Boothby will be looking to lead them away in towards the first turn. As Season 13 kicks off, gets underway for 60 minutes of action. George Boothby, can he make it another race win to his ever-growing tally, or will Grantis Correcas resurge his way back to the top step of the podium? We're about to find out. Buckle in, everybody. It's going to be a good one as Season 13 in 2024 of the Case King Pro Series is about to get underway, waiting for these green lights ready and waiting to go. Let's see how they get on. It's a good even start, but George Boothby's got the advantage heading towards the first couple of corners. They go. We go to the helicam. 3 wide immediately. That's Maciej Malinowski trying to be brave around the outside. McCormack has contact already. McCormack off. Correcas off. George Boothby into the gravel. I said it could be drama from the start, and it's been exactly that. George Boothby holds on to the lead. Cars off, sent off, left, right, and centre, and they all fly on down. George Boothby still leads away. Marco Bischoff P2. Cody Sherratt in P3 maintains position as they all fly on through, but disaster for the man that took the final victory of Season 12. Eric Gessel's made an amazing start in the number 40 car, P7 for the Porsche driver, as in the underdog George Boothby flies off into the distant second half, but Eric Gessel already attacking Dingo van der Velde. Incredible stuff from the Porsche driver, but mighty incidents already taking place, swapping of positions as they head through Piratella for the first time side by side. Van Team Barry, Gripax engineering car of Timu Carpenter down towards Aquamilani. They go. The Frenchman on the inside, but he's got the nose chopped across the front of him from the Lamborghini, and they will file single through the next couple of turns. But my goodness, drama immediately kicking off in this one. Darren McCormack has got going again, and he's joined immediately with Grantis Correcas. The 2 cars that went off at the beginning of this race through the opening sequence, but watch out for them. They will be very, very quick, I'm sure, on the stewards' inquiries. Well, oh my goodness, bit deep under brakes there from Darren McCormack, and Grantis Correcas sends it up the inside, but I think the Mercedes grunt is going to overtake down towards Ravazza for the first time. He's actually got a little bit of issues from the Mercedes behind, trying to go around the outside. That is Kevin Schwartz, but I don't think he's going to do it. Luke Whitehead down the order as well, the reigning champion. Oh my goodness, and it's continuing to kick off. Kevin Schwartz into the gravel. Luke Whitehead now under pressure from Dennis Wiedenschorker, and not an ideal start from any of these cars. Damage on the front end of that one as they all barrel on down towards the first chicane. But no change of positions at the pointy end of the grid. But what about all of this? We've got the likes of Santama, Polikov battling for position. Wiedenschorker using that McLaren undamaged, I think, for the German driver. Gets his way past Luke Whitehead, who's struggling immediately. Oliver Martins and Nils Narks battling further up. And Nils Narks, I think he's got damage on the front end of his car as well. So Oliver Martins managing to get himself up into P18. Disaster for a lot of the big names in this grid, but George Boothby leads away 1.6 seconds a gap to Marco Bischoff. Jardier using his experience and maybe a little bit of a fresh perspective further down the grid, because those cars in front of him, I think he managed to get through relatively cleanly. He's already up to P28 from P39 on the grid, and he does go on through. Adam Manson defending from Walter Neuwirth on the exit of Piratella. Checking in on the action further up the field though, Cody Sherratt in that Genesis Esports 296 applying the pressure to Marco Bischoff, who's already now 2.6 seconds behind George Boothby, who's absolutely laying the gauntlet down at the front of the field. Bit of a tricky one. We will catch up with the stewards' inquiries in a short moment, but I'm sure that they've got a lot to be getting through, and we'll see how the penalties end up falling as the drag races now towards the very outer chicane start to build up and kick off. Cody Sherratt in prime position trying to make a move on Marco Bischoff, but I think that McLaren straight line speed looking a bit too good. But what about the likes of Felix Brudern? He's absolutely locked onto the gearbox of Noah Reader and that Sprout Esports McLaren trying to go around the outside. Brave around here, and there is contact on the entry, and he's into the gravel, and that was almost inevitable. I think Timo Carpenter's going to go by. Valentine Barry goes by as well. Felix Brudern rejoining a bit further down. He loses 3-4 positions, and that is Aidan Walsingham trying to make his way through as well. Down the inside of Felix Brudern has not worked out whatsoever for the Porsche driver. Now he's also got the likes of Nicholas Huben. Very feisty, quick man indeed. And that Unicorns of Love car will be looking to try to find an opportunity to progress through the field. But we'll have to see and wait what the stewards have to say about that one. But these drag races, I told you, Imola was a historic, legendary, adrenaline-packed track to be at, and it is putting on exactly the sort of show that I anticipated. But George Boothby, despite that slightly wonky start, at the front of field mistake from Marco Bischoff, and that is the Genesis Esports Ferrari. Cody Serra trying to go down the inside in towards the very anti-outer chicane. It's a tricky one to make stick, and Marco Bischoff manages to just about hold him off, but he's gone a little bit wide on the exit, and that 296 looking very well planted, trying to see if he can find an opportunity down towards Ravazza. Does he send out the inside? Does he wait for the opportunity towards the chicane? Trying to go around the outside. That's brave to do it side by side through there. They've got to be careful of Imola, who's going to be watching and waiting for an opportunity just behind, but he's got Philip Menard, Tinko van der Velde applying the pressure to the McLaren behind, and it's going to get very, very interesting. 4 seconds now, the gap between Boothby and Marco Bischoff as they head on down towards the first chicane once more. George Boothby, nothing for him to worry about, but I think Dario Imola might have a little bit of a problem with Philip Menard trying to go around the outside himself now. South African brave move, trying to make that one stick. It's not going to work. Tinko van der Velde now going side by side with the Ferrari driver, and I think as they switch through there, he does just about make his sticks. The champion from a couple of seasons ago showing exactly why he is just that. Maciej Malinowski trying to hold off Jade Hutchinson, the Canadian, in that Aston Martin. Just manages to do it, but not like that. Kick of oversteer, and that might be the invite that Jade Hutchinson needs, and he sent one down the inside. Aggressive move from the Canadian driver. There's a tree in the way, trying to see where they come out and exit, but I think Malinowski, using that flat 6 torque and acceleration, might just about have enough of advantage to hold back the Aston Martin. We're going forward with Noah Reader, watching, waiting, trying to find an opportunity behind. Into Piratella they go, seeing if he can get the switch back on exit. It's good momentum for the McLaren driver, and he is going to apply the pressure, surely not around the outside, into Aqua Minerale, and Hutchinson manages to place the car in such a way to keep that McLaren behind. But that's the problem. You go from being the attacker to having to defend immediately. The margin's so close between each of these cars. And the battles, I have no doubt, are going to continue to kick off over the course of this race. We've only had 7 minutes or so in this one. And Luke Anderson, I do believe, is in this race, but I think he has unfortunately retired to the pit lane. I think someone else that might be about to do the same could be Sean Tempest, as something has happened to the German driver's debut in that McLaren. We'll try to see what kicked off for him further down the order. Sean Tempest, what kicked off there? Heading in towards Aqua Minerale. Is there going to be contact from the McLaren behind? Heading up the hill, it does look like it's had a little bit of a poor exit. Unfortunately, I think the replay did cut off a little bit of a curious rejoin there, and there is contact, and he does even keep out of the wall. He does. I think, though, we are going to catch the tail end of a slightly questionable rejoin. Does the 3-point turn off the grid, and as we come back in, there's the Porsche. Oh dear. It was, I think, if I had the sound effects for, I think everyone knows what sound effects that I'm talking about, that, yeah, that would have been the perfect time to cue that one. You might be wondering how he got here, but I tell you what, I'm not wondering about this one. Almost 3 wide, heading in towards the Tosa hairpin. Lobmeyer, Martins, Brudin, Walsingham, all battling for effects, and now as Nicholas Huber under pressure from Paul Lobmeyer. The 2 Germans going toe-to-toe, but can't quite get the move done in the Porsche. And it looks like Unicorn's Love Car is going to hold on to that one already. Down in towards Aqua Minerale. Look at this train of cars battling all the way from P14 down to P21. The 7-car train heading towards the top of the hill now. We will rejoin up towards and pointing at the grid. I'm afraid I can't quite catch the start replay because I can only go back at certain intervals, and unfortunately with the amount of chaos that we have going on at any instant, sometimes I can't quite catch everything, but I will keep you posted on all the stewards' inquiries as they look to come through. But there, Kylo once again saving the day, putting in a clip of the start of the race. Kylo, you absolute legend. Thank you so much. We'll tune back in with the likes of Maciej Malinowski, who looks like he could be in a good position to apply the pressure to Eric Gessel, who's having a fantastic drive in that number 40 car, but he's got Maciej, one of the most aggressive drivers, down towards turn 2 they go, and he is going to look towards the inside line. He's a demon on the brakes, trying to get the move done side by side, but Eric Gessel's having none of it, and Jade Hutchinson around the outside of turn 4 now. Looks like he might have made it stick. No Arena once again getting a faithful of these cars, trying to find any opportunity. Damage on board the Porsche Aston Martin. Oh, big mistake from Maciej Malinowski. I don't know if it was contact there. The McLaren into the gravel. Hutchinson through, barrier through, and that's Timo Carpenter as well. Barrier now trying to go up the inside of the Lamborghini. The tree's in the way again as they all fly on through. Hutchinson will go on board his rear diffuser because there's the Aston Martin and the Lamborghini side by side as they head up towards Piratella, and something, Grant Carreras is being registered in the pit lane. What has happened to Grant Carreras? I don't know. But it looks like Valentin Barrier has made the move. Stick with that, but Grant Carreras is in the pit lane. Disaster for the Lithuanian. I don't know if we're going to be able to try to catch what happened there because it's kicking off left, right, and centre. I will try to see if I can catch what happened to Grant Carreras because that is an absolute disaster. He's a Pro Series champion. He's a mighty, mighty force. And we go to Grant Carreras already in the pit lane. A lot of damage on board that car. And bearing in mind, I think he's had some sort of incident because there you go, he's already further down in the order. So something has happened for Carreras in repairing the damage on his car, I do believe. And that is very, very disappointing stuff for him. Now, meanwhile, we've got a look at this battle. This is the replay of how all of this was kicking off. Hutchinson capitalising, Carpenter trying to go through as well. Valentin Barrier, of course, managed to get that one on the exit as they went up the hill towards Piratella, and Noah Ida was seeing absolutely everything of that one. We go back to live pictures now, and Noah Ida fighting Carpenter down in towards turn one, side by side, the Lamborghini into the gravel, going over the curves. Brandon Reyes trying to go for almost a double switchback, can't quite get the momentum on the exit, and we'll have to try to wait for another opportunity. Keep in mind, these drivers have a mandatory pit stop window in the centre of this race. So serving that pit stop now will not count towards that mandatory stop. So that is disaster for Carreras there. And unfortunately, really is putting his race into a little bit of a nightmare, of course. In fact, he was actually further down the order already, of course, as they went, has had that incident on the very first lap. But Grant just not kicking things off the way that he would have wanted, has emerged. So he's actually still in the pit lane as it stands, keeping up with the pointy end of the grid. Cody Sherratt and Dario Imola applying the pressure to Marco Bischoff in that McLaren. I'll try to get some updates for all of you on these stewards' penalties and see, because I think we have had a few start to come through now, and I say a few, we've got 3 come through, but we do have a 15-second time penalty for the number 38 car for causing a collision on lap 1, and that is the man that we are looking at right now, Cody Sherratt for Genesis Esports. He might be applying the pressure to Marco Bischoff, but that time penalty for the incident on the first lap, and that is a very, very game-changing aspect for him. Of course, that will promote the likes of Imola onto the podium spots and give a little bit more breathing room for Marco Bischoff, but he will still have to deal with the pressure of that Ferrari behind. He'll serve that time penalty when he makes his stop. Meanwhile, Hutchinson side by side with Gessel, the Aston Martin. I said it had good straight line speed, and he has made his way past the Porsche through that opening sequence. We've also got moving into Marco Schada and Matta De Campo going off through the very anti-outer chicane, the Tamburello chicane there in the opening couple of turns, and dropping further down the order. We'll try to see if we can catch that battle on the replay. I'm not sure we can, because it's kicking off with Noah Ida, Timo Carpenter, Brandon Reyes involved in this one as well, as they're side by side on the run up the hill. Carpenter trying to go around the outside line, little bit of door-to-door bumping around the outside in towards Piratella. That's going to be a brave one to pull off. Brandon Reyes sticking the nose up the inside, but can't quite keep the McLaren there in the end. And they head down towards Acqua Minerale one more time. Car's length now between Noah Ida and that Lamborghini, but it does look like Carpenter just has a little bit more of a pace advantage as it stands at the moment, and applying all sorts of pressure to that Sprout Esports McLaren through the chicane, trying to keep it together. They've got to be so careful for track limits as well. Once again, they'll head down the start-finish straight. 4 seconds is your gap between George Boothby in P1 and Marco Bischoff, but things could start to get a little bit busy here, because Marco Bischoff, despite the fact that Cody Sherratt has that penalty, will remove him from this fight. Cody Sherratt, I think, is looking to fight it out anyway. The South African closing all the time, looking towards the outside line. Surely can't do anything there. Oh, big mistake from Imola. Imola in towards the gravel, missing his braking point entirely. Manages to get it all together. Meanwhile, Brandon Ray is having to defend from Nicholas Huberman, just about manages to keep the Mercedes behind, but now under pressure, the Italian Tinko van der Velde sweeps around the outside in towards the Villeneuve chicane, and the mistake for Imola, it's costly, and he may even have the company of Philippe Menard in the Ferrari in just a minute. Apparently the brake pedals slightly overrated there for Imola, trying to carry the greatest minimum speed possible. Didn't quite make it stick, but he has at least managed to keep it relatively undamaging to his race. Has lost a couple of positions, of course, but at least no bodywork damage to that car, but a lack of confidence perhaps at this point in time as he tries to get himself dialed into a rhythm. Like I say, this circuit, it's a hardcore track. It will bite you at any instance that you make a mistake, and so you just need to settle into a groove and into a rhythm. That right now is what George Boothby is trying to do at the front of the grid as he set the fastest lap of the race on the last lap of 40.015, almost into the 39s on that last one. And he'll try to see if he can continue that pace. Philippe Menard dropping a little bit away from Imola through the chicane there. It looks like McLaren fairly well settled through that part of the lap as they push on once more. Cody Sherritt, I think, a little bit too far away to prime an opportunity on to Marco Bischoff. That McLaren has had good straight line speed. I think he really needs to be absolutely on the gearbox of that car if he wants to send one down the inside in towards turn one. And there you have it. The speed very much in favour of that number one car. 4.5 seconds over the gap between himself and the car in P1. Meanwhile, Vanti Barrier centre one up the inside of Eric Gessel. Eric Gessel starting to drop down the order slightly, and the Aston starting to gather a bit of pace, and he'll look to follow on with the fellow car in front of him, Jade Hutchinson, that made that move not too long ago. So the fantastic effort from Gessel now. Oh, a little bit of mistake from the number 40 car as he tries to withstand the pressure, because he's got the likes of Noah Reader hot on his heels, and we know that these McLarens are fast in straight line. The Porsche, not as weak in a straight line as it once used to be, but definitely not a car that has that in the absolute peak of its arsenal. And that Sprouts Esport McLaren very likely to be gaining down the start-finish on the next lap. And we could see this number 40 car start to drop its way down the order further on into this race. We just need to stay calm and composed. That's what he's done since the beginning of this race. Still a fantastic effort from Eric in this one. But we'll see. He might get a little bit of a toe off Valentine that could protect him from the McLaren. Meanwhile, it seems to be getting a bit busy further down the order. We've got Oliver Martins in another one of the Aston Martins. Aidan Walsingham in number 14. And that's a bit of a off moment for Martins, and that could see him under pressure from the Mercedes driver heading down towards Ravat. So they go with double left-handers, so important to set up the exit on this one. Of course, the likes of Felix Brudern, Niot, Schade, all in hot pursuit behind. And we'll see this next batch of drag races. Cody Sherritt close, but not close enough to the back of Marco Bischoff. And Oliver Martins into the pits. Oliver Martins into the pits. I don't know if that's for corner cutting, maybe a drive-through penalty, because that is not inside the pit window. We're not far away from the pit window, but that is very unfortunate for him. Meanwhile, Darren Amelo all over the gearbox, and Tinko van der Velde trying to reclaim some of those positions. Meanwhile, Polnikov getting very busy over the cult. Disaster into the grass, and that is sweeping around the outside of one, maybe even two cars. That is Lois Rainier, the Frenchman, that capitalised in here. Here comes Jardier as well in the fellow McLaren, and he does take one as well. So disaster for De Campo, another incident of him, and Jardier, using that experience, has gained 16 positions in this race so far. He's got De Campo trying to fight back on the outside, but he is going to defend that inside line into the Tosa hairpin, and he makes his way through. A lot of chaos in this race, and sometimes that willful experience is what you need to just strike at the right moments. You don't always need to be the fastest car on the circuit to get yourself ahead. You just need to put yourself in the right place at the right time. That is a skill in itself. And he has gone through a lot of the field so far. Meanwhile, a little bit of scrap behind Albin Manson versus Niels Steinbrenner as they go up the hill. And yeah, absolutely, a lot of changes in the group. We've seen drivers, you know, either kind of stick to certain cars over previous season. We've seen the likes of a lot of McLarens in the hands of Veloce guys. We've seen Luke Whitehead very, very quick in the Porsche course, and he stepped away from that car, going over to the Mercedes. this race definitely not the clearest of benchmarks for where his pace is going to sit. In that car mistake from Manson, and that might allow Neuwirth and the Aston Martin someone up the inside at the final corner. Aston Martin versus Mercedes on the exit. Going to be pretty even between them, but I think the Aston Martin has just about enough grunt to escape. We'll see what happens as they head down the start-finish straight towards turn 2. And that Mercedes starting now to gain a bit of momentum back. Does he summon up the inside? Neuwirth surely going to defend it. He does as they head in towards the apex. Brave around the outside, but well defended from Votek. And they have to keep an eye on Adrian Estroza just behind as well. A man that's returned sim racing not too long after a bit of a hiatus away. Great to see him fit and well again, racing and racing hard onto the back of these cars. Someone as well that was chopping and changing, trying to find an opportunity past the BMW head was Vassner versus Makovsky. Gets a big slide on the exit there. Meanwhile, Jardier and Lloyd Rainier swapping positions a moment ago. And Jardier did get the move done. We'll try to catch that one on the replay. The Frenchman dropping a position in all of that. And where did that take place? I think it actually is going to kick off with Lloyd Rainier here battling with the Porsche. Around the outside, Porsche goes a little bit contact there. Is it a trip towards the gravel? It is. And Jardier says, thank you very much. Goes flying on through around the outside in towards the Tosa hairpin. Gets the move done. And Lloyd Rainier then with nothing to fight with. A little bit of damage on board that car as well. And Jardier just continuing to pick off these cars one by one as and when the opportunities start to come about. Meanwhile, an opportunity for Aidan Walsingham setting up the inside. Felix Brudern in the Mercedes P16 now for the Mercedes driver. Gaps up ahead as Noah Reader has come into the pit window, I think, has now opened. That is Niels Nart coming in as well. So a lot of these cars that have got damage on board, they're coming into the pits now. And you can see Felix Brudern, pretty healthy speed in the slipstream Mercedes. So this battle, not redundant, yeah, big speed boost as they head towards turn 2, flying up towards the braking. So a little bit of a squeeze on the entry from Aidan Walsingham, but he defends that one. And I think, unless Felix Brudern able to get a slingshot out of turn 4, it's a pretty speedy exit, but I don't think he's quite going to have the overlap. Willie's looking at it, trying to send out the inside. It's a tricky one unless you are firmly alongside, though, in order to do that one. And Aidan Walsingham does look like he has got the move sorted there. Your top 5 all in pretty even bunches and places at the moment. They have not shuffled around too much. The gap between P1 and P2, 5 seconds now in favour for George Boothby. Closest fight inside this group. Philip Menard versus Dario Imola, the Porsche to Ferrari 296 of the number 36 car, starting to gain a little bit of pace and momentum. And also remember, of course, Cody Sherratt will have that 15-second time penalty if he serves in the pit lane, so that will drop him from P3 and a chunk down the order. So this is effectively the fight for P4 in this race at the moment. We'll have a bit of a gander at the stewarding sheet, see if we've got any more results. We do have some. So we've got a 10-second time penalty for the number 7 car. That is for causing a collision on the very first lap, and that car belongs to, that was Niels Niox. It's not as well as having the damage on board his car. He's got a 10-second time penalty that'll be serving in the pit lane as well. The number 5 car of Tinko van der Velde has a 5-second time penalty as well. So something going against the champion from a couple of seasons ago, and that would look to drop him behind the likes of Iamolo and Manar. So that actually makes this the battle for the final spot on the podium as it stands right now. So penalties coming into effect and a long, long way to go in this race. Battle still going on for P15 between Walsingham and Felix Brudern in that Porsche. Great effort from him in the number 24 car. And also squabble emerging, Eric Gessel, who has started to lack a little bit of pace at the tail end of this first stint. Maybe the tyres are starting to give up on the Porsche. Setup might not be quite ideal on board number 40 car to keep them alive all the way through this stint. Will we see an undercut from the likes of Carpenter? Looks like he has a bit of pace to work with and explore in this one. Might be losing a bit of time behind number 40 and feels like if he gets a track position, maybe getting himself further in towards the top 10. Could be on the cards and hunting the likes of Valentin Barrier in that Yas Heat Aston Martin. The Lamborghini should be pretty pacey in the top speed aspects. Think a bit wide for Valentin as well, as Cody Sherratt all of a sudden within a couple of tenths. I think a little bit of a slow run through the chicane for Marco Bischoff. Of course, penalty for Cody Sherratt will effectively nullify any battle that takes place here, but it still could put a bit of a spanner in the works for the two-time Pro Series champion. Although right now, of course, he is driving in a rather consolidated P2 spot at the moment, and it looks like he still has enough of a gap and an advantage over that car. Meanwhile, Timo Carpenter does come into the pit lane. Underco must have been listening to me in the chat there as he looks to try to get a fresh set of tyres on board that Lamborghini. Use the clear track that he is hoping to emerge in, and then get that pedal down to the floor and put some good laps in. Meanwhile, Philip Mannar, all sorts of pressure being applied to the McLaren all the way around the outside. Can't make it stick there. Will have to concede to Imola, although it's a slide. Does he set one up the inside? He's thinking about it. He has to go towards an outside line, and it's all bringing it in. Jade Hutchinson, the Canadian driver, he's so good at this, trying to find opportunity when the battles go on ahead. But it's a good enough exit for Philip Mannar, but it's brought these two into the clutches of the Aston Martin. And like I say, this is effectively now a three-way fight for the final spot on the podium. I said watch out for this number 10 car as he continues to show how he's so good in these situations. Trying to wait for an opportunity, and we'll see what the straight line speed is like the next time through. Again, Cody Sherratt applying the pressure through the chicane to Marco Bischoff. Can't make anything stick on this occasion. Felix Brudern hasn't let go of Aidan Walsingham yet. Of course, one thing we don't know is what the track limit situation is like for a lot of these drivers. That can have a big effect very quickly. Timo Carpenter emerging out of the pit lane, and he is in clean air. That's what he would have wanted to see. Noah Reeder comes flying on down towards turn 2. And the likes of Inestroza also came into the pits not too long ago as well. Cody Sherratt still too far away to make a move happen. How about Hutchinson, though, in the fight with Mannar? Mannar a little bit further away, trying to take the slipstream from Imola. Nicholas Huber now comes into the pits, and Carpenter's successful overcut for him over on Noah Reeder. And Hutchinson, you can see him trying to think about a move. He's applying the pressure to Mannar. A little bit deep under brakes there for the Ferrari, I think, as meanwhile, side by side, natural foul between Eric Getz and Brandon Reyes. Brandon Reyes sent it down the inside, got it wrong, and now he's got the pressure of the other Porsche climbing up behind him. And Cody Sherratt's also applied the pressure to Marco Bischoff. It's all kicking off as we approach the pit window around the outside. He looks to go side by side between the 296 and the McLaren. Like I say, it will not play out like this in the end. Cody Sherratt is not helping his own race here, because this battling is slowing his own race down. He will still have about 15-second time penalty wide on the exit for Bischoff as he tries to get the power down in the McLaren. They stay as they were, but that's lost the pair of them another second, and that is not ideal for those cars. Meanwhile, Hutchinson and Mannar dropping away from Imola in their scrap. That is going to lose a little bit of that slipstream for the Ferrari. That Aston Martin may be in a position to pounce very, very soon. Marco Schada in that Honda, the YT Sports car, very recognisable livery on board that one, applying all sorts of pressure onto Felix Brudern, who has been losing a bit of pace and time over Walsingham in the last couple of laps. A Honda seemingly coming alive at this point in time. Just seeing Nicholas Huben emerging out of the pits. Timo Carpenter comes flying down the start-finish straight, and he is going to get one. And what about the McLaren of Noah Reeder? He can't get through, so he will slot in behind the Lamborghini then. Cody Sherratt's made a bit of a mistake, drops quite a bit away from Marco Bischoff now. And apparently Aidan Walsingham on 3 cuts already. Dangerous times for him. Meanwhile, Philip Mannar into the pits for his pit stop. Wants to stop squabbling away with Hutchinson. Try to see if he can maintain track position by being the first one to pit, and hope that Hutchinson ends up in a little bit of a scrap later on. But that Aston Martin very good at looking after its tyres. Meanwhile, Brandon Ray still applying the pressure to Eric Gessel, unable to make a move stick. The Honda not quite gaining to the back of the number 24 Porsche in the way that he would have wanted, but this train of 4 cars battling for what is now P12 on track. We'll see how everyone filters out in a short moment. Meanwhile, not the best of exits for Marco Schada, under pressure from Ava Santama. They're all flying up towards the Villeneuve chicane, heading down the inside side by side between a pair of contacts. The Honda almost into the gravel. The McLaren goes through. Santama trying to go through as well. Here comes Jardier at the back of this pack as well. The Porsche still holding on out front. The McLaren a little bit of bumping in the middle of the apex. Schada gets back through on Jardier, who's waiting, watching for an opportunity. He's got to be careful. He's driven superbly so far, making his way through the order. But now this is getting busy, and also could be a poignant moment to make a pit stop if you are amongst these cars, because this squabbling is going to be losing your time side by side between Schada and the Porsche. Polikov manages to defend the Porsche, but he goes a little bit deep. Can he hold it on the exit? He can, but the Honda a little bit squirrely. and Jardier isn't quite able to get enough momentum on the exit there. Meanwhile, chiming in here because Lobmeyer, no reader, side by side with Nicholas Huben in towards the first turn. Huben just about managing to fend off McLaren. That McLaren with a little bit of pace right now with those tyres up to temperature. Huben, though, shouldn't be too long from getting his tyres in the window. Now, Cody Sherritt comes into the pits. Imola into the pits as well. Boothby, Bischoff, Van der Velde, Hutchinson, Barrier, all staying out as it stands. So is Eric Gessel. Lux and Malinowski is coming as well. Brandon Reyes into the pits too. And you see there Marco Schade just in front of Jardier. He pulls into pit lane. Looked like it was a pretty late decision from him, maybe trying to work out how he wanted to go about his race. Santama closing the gap up to Felix Brudin. Big straight line speed, big momentum for the McLaren, but not quite enough of an overlap in order to make a move in towards the first turn, and big slide on the exit as well through that chicane. Also a big thank you, we've got a record-breaking amount of you watching as it stands at the moment. This is the Case King Pro Series, this is the world of LFM. If you are enjoying this race, please do follow the channel, because I tell you what, it's like this every single week. Over 50 of you have already followed already, and I cannot wait to see how things go in the rest of the world. Mistake from Brudin at the hairpin, and now it's side by side between Santama and the Porsche. Santama does get through, and Polikov might get through as well, trying to find opportunity. Look at them side by side towards Piratella. Jardier still trying to find an opportunity through. On the exit they go, momentum in favour of Polikov, side by side in front of them though, nowhere for him to go. Surely you think about making a stop if you're in this train, because this is losing these guys time after time. 2 seconds loss on this lap for Brudin alone as they head up towards the very anti-outer chicane. Can't do anything there by the looks of it. Meanwhile, action further down the order. Noah Reader still unable to make his way past Nicholas Huber. Brandon Reyes has slotted into this pack as well. Lobmeyer on the tail end of it too. Carpenter, though, on that undercut, still looking very nice in terms of trying to get clean air and pace as it stands. Meanwhile, Brudin, Polikov, Jardier all still squabbling. Bischoff, Van der Velde, Hutchinson, Barrier, Gessel, Malinowski now all into the pits. George Boothby staying out. He doesn't need to pit just yet, and a ton of cars file into the pit lane now at the halfway point in this one as they look to get a fresh set of boots onto their tyres. Santama, the only one in that train that has stayed out, and he was looking to build up a bit of pace and momentum. But he's got to be careful, because in such a close train, could lose a lot of track position, may not benefit him in the end. We'll keep an eye on these squabbles further down the order, but whereabouts is Karppinen going to end up with a lot of those other cars that were ahead of him, were around him, having now come into the pits? He's had a pretty good placement in terms of where he's filtered out into the pack, where he's had clean air from the very start of his stint. Meanwhile, cars around him have had quite a bit of a busy time comparably. You see, coming into Ravazza for the Lamborghini Grippax engineering car. Let's see. Makes his way out of the final corner. Could be busy for Huben, and Ida on the run down towards turn 2 again. He's coming towards the exit of the pit lane now. Cars starting to emerge. The likes of Hutchinson on his way out. So Stinko Van der Velde. All of these cars well ahead of Teemu Karppinen, who I've now brilliantly lost on the timing board. There's Karppinen, and he's emerged just in front of Valentin Barrier. So there you have it. The undercut has worked, and he's got himself ahead of the Yassit Aston Martin car. And it all starts to get very busy. Look at the deltas between these cars, side by side, between some of them down towards turn 1 and turn 2 as they all filter out from the pit lane. Some of these cars on cold tyres, some of them on slightly older, but crucially right now hotter tyres. George Boothby comes into the pits, your race leader. Comfortable advantage for him. Should come out on the freshest tyres of almost anyone and be able to settle into a groove in the closing stages of this race. Neil Steinbrenner looking for an opportunity in towards the Tosa hairpin. Can't make one stick there. Walsingham, interestingly, staying out in that number 14 Mercedes, so haven't quite had everybody come into the pit so far. And we'll see how the positions stack up relative to the start of this one in a short moment once everybody has completed their pit stops. Marco Schade has found himself down in 30th position for the number 16 car. I don't know if he had a penalty to serve in the pit lane. I'll check in with the steward inquiries in just a moment, see if they've managed to make any further progress in all of that. It looks like they have. So we've got a 15-second time penalty for the number 12 car, and that car belongs to, as I look through my timing board, where is the number 12? I can't find them in the grid whatsoever, so they may have left the server. In actual fact, that number 12 car, I have to check it up here, though. Hutchinson applying the pressure to Philip Menard, trying to find an opportunity, but not quite close enough to make something stick. We'll have to wait for another one in just a moment. Kicking off, Huben able to fend off Ida once again. Lobmeyer versus Brandon Reyes in the McLaren versus Porsche scrap. As Santama emerging out of the pit lane, and it gets busy. There's all the cars he was fighting in. Lloyd's Radius sending one down the inside. Doesn't want to lose the position to the car that was going for the overcut. He has just about made it work. Oh, contact and further contact as well. Somehow the Porsche Bruderd manages to not go around. Cars sent in a couple of different directions there as they all fly on through. Lloyd's Radius gets himself going, and hopefully it's an okay rejoin, and he does. And I'm sure the stewards will be looking at that one in just a moment. Jardier arriving on the scene, trying to continue to make his way up through the back. Bearing in mind, he started in P39 in this race. He's gained 20 positions, and he's still looking to gain some more. Side-by-side action as Manson 3 wide on the run up to Piratella. We've got Manson, Neuwirth, Steinbrenner and Polyakov up towards Piratella. Heavy damage on the front of the BMW. Manson trying to hold that inside line, keeping the BMW behind. Surely Neuwirth has a better line here. He does. Steinbrenner, nothing he can do, and that car's looking very, very wounded. McLaren and Vshalker goes on through. Walsingham and Aiden Stroter McCoskey will surely make their way through in just a moment as well. Walsingham comes into the pits. I think the last car to make a pit stop. Then we can see how everyone's stacking up. Innestroza gets that one done easily down the inside at the very anti-outer chicane. On exit, I'm sure McCoskey will make his way through in just a moment as well. Meanwhile, Hutchinson a bit too far away to close the gap to Philip Menard in that Ferrari. As Imola, crucially, a couple of seconds ahead of these two. And managing to just eke out that gap a bit further. Nicholas Huben now getting a little bit stuck behind Vanzine Barrier. Three-way fight for P8 as it stands between the Frenchman, Huben and Ida in that Sprout Esport McLaren. As emerging out of the pits, Aidan Walsingham finds himself down in P16. It's all still kicking off between Manson, Polikov and Neuwirth towards turn 2 they go, but it's Mercedes that comes out on top of this scrap for P21. Steinbrenner and Sean Tempest over and under, potentially for the German driver, but I don't think with the damage that he has on board that car, he's going to be able to retake the place. Sean Tempest will take that one and gets himself up into 27th position. It's also worth noting that scrapping between Bischoff and Cody Sherratt. The gap now between Boothby and the German driver is 7.5 seconds, and that is even with Boothby going for a fairly substantial overcut in the end. So that is the difference that scrapping made. Huben, Ida fighting away. Vanzine Barrett trying to maintain the gap to these cars. That was a good exit out of the chicane for Ida, who's been looking pretty quick in the second stint, trying to show his nose up the inside in towards the Ravazza chicane. Can't make it stick though. I will continue to try to look at the stewards' inquiries in just a moment, but these guys are not giving me too much of a moment, and that is a poor exit for the Mercedes. And Huben, he's got a straight line speed advantage. Vanzine has managed to escape up the road just a little bit side by side between these two, and you'd have to think now Ida with that inside line surely manages to make his way through and sets his sights on the Yassi. Aston Martin up ahead of him gets the job done, and up into P9 the German driver goes and tries to see if he can escape. I'll tell you what, Huben's not giving it up. He's flashing a light so from Huben. I think that's a polite flashing of lights. I didn't see anything too untoward from these two, so it's a case of work with me here. We can try to get that Aston Martin up ahead. Vanzine looking like struggling a little bit for pace at the moment between these two. Not too much weaker, but just a little bit, because also bearing in mind Carpenter on that undercut strategy has really put a gap over the Frenchman over the last few laps. 2.5 seconds the gap between the Lambo and the Aston Martin. And speaking of Aston Martins, Jade Hutchinson locked on to the rear of Philip Menard, with Imola currently sitting in that P3 spot with those penalties. Of course, Tinko van der Velde had that 5-second penalty. He emerged in P6 and is not too far away from the scraps. He'll be looking to try to dial in pace on board his Mercedes, see if he can bring himself back into the fight for P4 in this race. But Hutchinson, this is the closest he has been And Philip Menard's going to get absolutely nothing in terms of a tow in this one. And the Canadian driver, not best exit for the Aston Martin. Not quite rotating in the way that he would have wanted. We're on board the front splitter of the number 10 car. How's he fared down the start-finish straight, going through the kink of turn 1. He is gaining, closing all the time. There's the momentum, starts to build like a rocket ship towards the inside line. Hutchinson is going to go, dives towards Lee, is given space on the inside, side by side, through the apex. Is there a little bit of door-to-door banging, and he has to cut across the grass. They're going to rejoin, and Tinko van der Velde will be rubbing his hands together, thinking that there's the opportunity for me to get back involved in the fight for P4, and even Timo Karppinen finding his way towards this scrap as well. But Hutchinson, he'll have something to say about that, I am sure, but the stewards, I imagine, will be looking into that one. We'll see what they have to say. And now that all the pit stops have been completed, let's have a little bit of a look at this one. Hutchinson up 9 positions. The Canadian driver, as always, progressing through the field very nicely. Karpen and Barry, 8th and 9th then, respectively. Huben, Raiz, Lobmeyer, all up 9 positions apiece. Santimer, 14. Jardier, 20 positions for him. Big moves, Polikov, Neuwirth as well. So a lot of drivers benefiting from some of the incidents in this race, but also just keeping their head down, making the moves when it matters, using strategy to their advantage. Sometimes you don't need to fight it out or on track. Sometimes just making a stop at the right time, even not so much for the tyre advantage, but just because of how the battling take place around you. That's sometimes all you need to do. Hutchinson now, he's under a bit of pressure from Tinko van der Velde in that Mercedes, starting to regain some form and some pace in the second stint of this race. 20 minutes on the clock, still plenty of opportunities and time for things to go wrong. I think that was the problem for Marco Schade, a 15-second time penalty for the number 16 car for a collision on the first lap of the race, for those that were asking what happened to him. A 10-second time penalty as well for the number 4 car. Who did that belong to? That is someone that I believe is no longer in the server, from what I can tell. So unfortunately I can't tell who that is for. Warning for the number 23 car. We had also a 15-second time penalty for the number 26. That was Lois Rainier, who I think may have retired to the pit lane, unfortunately. As just checking in, Nicholas Huben still applying the pressure to the back of Noah Reader. Has not let this one go. Meanwhile, Jardier making a move over Abbas Santimer. 21 positions now for the number 8 McLaren. Starting to settle in to a bit of a groove. And he's got Mattia De Campo, who is following on with him, making that Ferrari-filled McLaren sandwich. And we'll try to see if we can catch a replay of the move from Jardier then. I think it's going to be a case of being locked into the slipstream. Down towards turn 2. Towards that inside line, not particularly a big fight. Actual fact, must have been a mistake. Oh, it's a big mistake. Clomping the curves. Was the McLaren there, and Jardier just filtering his way through on that gap on the outside. Says thank you very much, and goes up into P18. Number 4 car was Luke Whitehead. Thank you very much for the reminder there. So yes, he had a penalty to his name, and he looks to have retired from this race. So disappointment there for the reigning champion. Already a poor race to open up his season. As we go back to like Tinko van der Velde versus Jade Hutchinson. 21 car has a 10-second time penalty as well. That car belongs to Sean Tempest. And I think we've got some other penalties on the way. But as far as confirmed penalties go, that one's just come through. So a 15-second time penalty for the number 37 car. And that belongs to Abbas Santimer. So as well as losing that position to Jardier on the last lap, has now unfortunately got a penalty to his name as well. It's going to drop him considerably down the order. So not ideal stuff for him. As his scrap for P9 really starting to heat up now. Noah Reader under pressure from Nicholas Huben. Brandon Raiz, white flag briefly for Jardier, just a bit slow through the opening couple of corners, but I don't think there was anything too disastrous there for the number 8 car. 17.5 minutes left on the clock to try to find some opportunities in this scrap between, as Tinko van der Velde lost the position to Hutchinson. I'm not sure if those two were swapped around or not as of a moment ago, but one way or another, the three-way fight for P4 with Bernard Hutchinson and the Dutchman, of course, Pro Series champion from a couple of seasons ago. And that's a bit of a wiggle for Philip Menard, and that actually could be the difference maker as Hutchinson closing all the time. Does he get to the inside line? Does he go towards the outside and heading towards Ravazza? He's not going to send one down the inside. He's trying to be more patient than that. It's rare, but he goes for a dive. And now trying to plan his opportunity. Heading up towards turn 2. And then flying up through the sequence. That Ferrari gets such good rotation on the exit of Ravazza, but then the slipstream, the pace, the speed starts to build up in favour of this Aston Martin as they fly towards the first turn. He is going to have to go defensive. Hutchinson goes towards the outside line, can't make anything happen, and he's got to be careful of this man, Tinko van der Velde, trying to duck and dive, find any opportunity he can. Brandon Ruiz was very close to the back of Nicholas Hubin as well as they fight amongst each other for P9. And these fights still continuing on all the way up and down the grid. And that's very close. A bit of a mistake. I heard the gravel in the background. And I think it was Menard. Hutchinson trying to go down the outside. But he can't quite make it stick. Philip Menard holds on to that position. As Tinko van der Velde waiting for an opportunity as well. Bodikov and Manson swap, but I don't think I can catch any of them because side by side in towards Piratella. And yes, oh, big contact! Just about managing to keep it going. And here comes Tinko van der Velde trying to go down the inside, but he's got nowhere to go with that 296. And there is contact again and almost again. But Nars wide. Hutchinson off! Hutchinson off! In towards the wall. Tinko van der Velde, and that's heavy damage on board the Canadian's car. He is going to try to swing around and get going again. Tinko van der Velde losing a position to Karppinen as well. And Valentine Barrios found himself in this fight. It's all kicked off in the final stages. 15 minutes left on the clock. Philip Menard running away from this group. We'll have to see if the stewards have anything to say about any of that. I'm sure there'll certainly be a penalty for Tinko van der Velde. Almost contact again with Karppinen sending one up the inside. He may not even need to. Penalties may do this as they're side by side on the exit. Valentine Barrios at this rate could take the pair of him. He's trying to go towards the outside line. It's a mighty run from the Yassi car. They're almost 3 wide. Mercedes, Lamborghini, Aston Martin heading down towards the start-finish straight. Some of the best in the Pro Series, and Karppinen getting sandwiched there almost. A big crash in towards turn 2 they go, but Valentine Barrios might take the pair of him. He can't quite do it. Tinko van der Velde holds the outside line. Karppinen coming back on the exit. No arena. Hubin involved in this scrap as well as Tinko tries to keep them all at bay as they fly on towards the Villeneuve chicane. No arena with the switchback on Karppinen trying to go through McLaren Lamborghini contact between them. There's a big slide for Karppinen, and Karppinen's now around into the barrier, and Longmire slices away through 3 cars up into the hairpin. Longmire into P7. No arena now side by side on the exit with Nicholas Hubin. It's all kicked off in the final stages of the Pro Series race. Hubin now side by side with the car he's battled with so often in this race. Up towards Piratella they go. Ida down the inside manages to just about keep it together. Maciej Manowski just damaged in the first stint. Now trying to find his way back in towards the top 10. He's found his way towards the top 10. He's got the Genesis eSports Ferrari of Cody Sherratt, who had that 15-second time penalty. I would have loved to have seen a lot of this on the replay, but I just don't think I'm going to be able to catch up with any of this. Heading towards the chicane, Malowski trying to show his nose up toward the inside with what we've just seen over the last couple of laps. I'm not sure that's a fantastically good idea. I can tell you now, a lot of these incidents under investigation. We'll see if there are any penalties dished out. But Inostroza and Karppinen, Inostroza and the Aston Martin of Hutchinson, big loss for him, of course. Heavy damage, and I think maybe out of the server entirely. Big disappointment for the Canadian. And, of course, Karppinen as well being sent down the order. He's still in this one. He's P13 and now having to defend from Eric Gessler, who's lost out a little bit from where he sat earlier in this race. Whether or not he's able to make a move past a slightly wounded Lamborghini heading towards turn 2. Does he look up the inside? The answer is no on this occasion. Edwin Walsingham also bringing up the rear of these cars as well as they make their way through. It's pretty easy going inside your top 3. You've got George Boothby. He's not had a lot of camera time. He's had a very easy time as he's in the only driver in the 39s at the moment. Marco Bischoff P2, Dario Imola P3 as well. But these other positions kicking off as look at some of these progressions. Paul Longmire now gained 14 positions in this race. Jardier is getting 22. You can just say, like I say, qualifying, it's not everything. You never know what's going to happen. And those split-second decisions. Longmire Absolutely incredible opportunistic stuff. He found the gap, the seas parted in front of him, and he managed to make his way through and now finds himself, I think, for a best results in the Pro Series, but still crucially a few laps left to go. And we can't call it just yet. Valentine Barry applying the pressure to Tinko van der Velde, who's surely got a penalty coming his way. Meanwhile, Eric Gessel gets the move done on Teemu Karpinen, who's continuing now to drop down the order. And that's P13 for number 40 car. But I don't think it's settled and done with just yet, because that car is going to struggle in the straight line. It's going to struggle in the straight line already. Gripback's Engineering, can he get towards the inside line? Out of Vatsa, he chooses not to. But in towards turn 2, he might be able to find an opportunity to make his way through. Good exit from the number 40 car. 3 cuts apparently for the Lamborghini driver, so he's got to be a little bit cautious. And in actual fact, Aidan Walsingham might be the one to think. He's on 3 cuts as well, so it's the battle of cars that are dangerously close to coming under fire. Oh my goodness, it was contact start finish straight, and Carpenter is going to lose it as well. Oh, it's taken all of them out. Carpenter losing the control of the Lamborghini. Contact with Walsingham right before the braking zone, and Eric Gessel, unfortunate stuff for him. Somehow he comes back out in P14. He might even hold on to P13 with a penalty maybe heading the way of Aidan Walsingham. I can't keep up into the replay zone because now we've got Malnoski, Huben, Sherritt Reyes battling for P9 in this race. My goodness, the stewards are going to be working overtime all the way until the end. So far, I have nothing to report. We've got a lot of no further actions in this one. We'll see how it plays out. But my goodness, Karpinen just found himself right before the braking zone. It was almost like Austria. I remember Austria Grand Prix, Pastor Maldonado closing the DRS right before turn 1, and that car fishtailing back and forth. He managed to just about keep under control, but unfortunately for Karpinen on that occasion, just couldn't quite make it stick. Meanwhile, Malnoski, Sherritt, Reyes all battling for position for the closing stages of the top 10. I imagine we may have to rely on our wonderful and glorious Kylo to get a clip of that one in order to see that one. Of course, like I say, the VODs from this stream will be over on the YouTube channel, so you can catch up with all of the action over there. But unfortunately, with the way this one's been playing out, we've got Stroza around now. It's chaos. There's 10 minutes left to go in the closing stages of this race. Kylo once again doing absolute wonders. And we'll try to see what happens to Stroza further down the order. But my goodness, this race has been absolute carnage at points. And you see, that is Stroza. He was very close up towards the back of the McLaren. Looks towards an outside line. That's battling with Dennis Wietschorker. Goes towards the outside. Oh, there's contact with Makowski in the BMW behind. And Stroza then sent around a car in towards the barrier. I think there is a penalty on the way for at least somebody, but I will get confirmation of that in just a moment. But my goodness, the Pro Series, even some of the best drivers making some errors in this championship, fighting for so much on the line, so close to the limit time and time again. Trying to see, and there is a confirmed penalty. It's a 15-second time penalty for the number 5 car, and that car belongs to Marco Schade, has brought the yellow flag. He's just emerged out of the pit lane. I'm trying to find who the number 5 car is. In the server, that is Tinko van der Velde. So Tinko van der Velde, 15-second time penalty for the Mercedes, and that is going to drop him well out of the order. So Valentine Barrier hasn't managed to get the move done on track, but he will certainly gain that position as a result. So will Lobmeyer. He will slot into P6. Incredible showing from some of these cars. We'll see. Way I'm sure there's going to be. We may not even have complete conclusion until the end of this one. It does seem like people trying to go for a penalty point record in one race, but my goodness, this is a very, very busy one to open up the season, as Cody Sherritt now locked onto the gearbox of Massier in that port, struggling for straight line speed. South Africa can't someone up the inside in towards the opening chicane, and we'll have to wait for an opportunity. Good momentum though through turns 2, 3 and 4. You can still see a little bit of damage on board the Porsche driver. Support for him in the chat as well, as Karpiner's off again. Felix Brudern flies on through, and Karpiner his race going from bad to worse. It was looking so good with his pit strategy. That undercut was working fantastically, but unfortunately over the last couple of laps it has not gone his way whatsoever. And you can see closing in the slipstream, Felix Brudern Good bit of momentum, good run up to the back of the Lamborghini, not defended down the inside line either, as Carpenter does try to hold it, but there was contact in the middle of the corner, sent into the gravel, and Brudin makes his way through. We'll see, though, if there is anything to be answered from the stewards in that one in just a moment. Only a few minutes left on the clock. This is the sort of chaos and action that the Pro Series delivers every single week. Sometimes maybe not quite as brutal and chaotic, but certainly the drama is very much the same every time that we go racing. And it shows once again the way this platform works, the system, how it works. So you get racing up and down the order no matter where you are, and you cannot count yourself out of a race up until that checkered flag waves. Another penalty for the number 31 car this time. It is a 5-second penalty for number 31. That is McCoskey for the instant at the very anti-house chicane that sent Inostroza around. As now heading down the start-finish straight for the first time, I think, in this entire race, as Marcus Schade brings out the yellow flag. I think there's a bit of a wide moment for him, going a little bit slowly in that Honda, but for the first time in this race, we haven't actually got a red delta. I lied. Cody Sherritt is now within that red delta margin of half a second to Malnowski, trying to apply pressure to the Veloce car ahead. Bear in mind, this guy had a 15-second time penalty for an instant at the very start of this race, and yet still finds himself in with a chance of scoring a top 10 finish. Looking at the positions gained in this race, still Jardier, the biggest mover in the field, 22 positions for him, currently sitting in P17 with just a couple of laps left to go. George Boothby, 9-second lead over Bischoff, who himself is 9.5 seconds clear of Imola. That top four very spread out. Tinko van der Velde close to the back, as Jardier now sends one up the inside of Teemu Karppinen. An unusual place to make the move stick, but I think Karppinen running a little bit wounded as it stands. We're trying to catch a replay now that we don't have 50 million battles all happening at quite the same time. We can take a bit of an opportunity to have a look at this one. You can just see Karppinen struggling for pace at the moment. Does he even lift off on the way up towards Piratella? Heading up the hill they go, and it was forced between the pair of them. Jardier had to still send out the inside, make it 23 positions gained for the number 8 car. P16 now for him, and Teemu Karppinen could have the company of the likes of Ava Santama very soon, as Paul Longmire continuing to impress in this race, putting pressure onto the back of Valentin Barrier. They're both going to benefit from Tinko van der Velde's penalty up ahead, 15 seconds for him. But Longmire, can he get a top 5 finish in the top split of the Pro Series? What a story it would be for the number 13 car in the Porsche, applying the pressure as much as he can. It's very close to getting all right, a bit deep into the hairpin as well, because a bit of breathing space to Valentin Barrier. We've also got a penalty, I think, soon to be dished out, and we do. That's Noah Reeder, a 15-second time penalty now for him. So big penalties being dished out amongst some of these cars. Sean Tempest, McCoskey, side by side through the opening sequence. I think we should be safe to try to catch a replay of those guys squabbling away down towards the opening sequence once again. And we'll see what happened as they went on the run towards the first turn. Had to go to the outside line, did Tempest. Does he get it done under braking? My goodness, that's brave. Left a lot of room from Makovsky. Maybe somewhat repenting for the incident at the chicane not too long ago with Inostroza, but Tempest manages to go all the way around the outside and gets the move done and himself up into 24th position. Brandon Reyes applying the pressure to Cody Sherritt now, trying to go around the outside. Cody Sherritt was attacking a moment ago. Slow as well for his Longmire further up the order. That gap between himself and Barrier has grown, and so has the gap between Reyes and Cody Sherritt into the gravel. Briefly there. See now. Tries to see if he can find an opportunity in the slipstream. Only a couple of laps left to go down towards turn 1. Momentum building for the McLaren. Looks towards the outside line, makes it the inside line. It's Daniel Ricciardo-esque, but he can't get down the inside in towards turn 2. And Cody Sherritt will carry the momentum on through. Meanwhile, Polyakov comes into the pits. I can only imagine that's a drive-through penalty at the very end stage of the race. Disaster for him. Gessel versus Brudin, the two Porsches now battling, as Gessel, the number 40 car, he impressed so much in the first stint. He's lacked a little bit of pace in the second still, but still a fantastic effort from the number 40 car in his Pro Series debut. debut as that's into the gravel. Brudern trying to find every opportunity that he can. And of course, Jardier not too far behind these guys. If they do start to squabble on the final couple of laps, he may be able to make his way through and up some positions. We've also had a 5-second penalty. I think I've read that one out actually for McCoskey. That, of course, was that instance with Innestroza. But McCoskey has also come into the pits. Drive-through penalty for the BMW and corner cutting straight at the very end of this one. Meanwhile, Lodmeyer now suddenly under a lot of pressure. Those mistakes have all accumulated. No Reader has a penalty on board his car, so he doesn't need to fight his one for position. Lodmeyer will be able to see that in his in-game race director. It might be worth letting this McLaren go and using the slipstream to protect himself from the likes of Huben behind. Meanwhile, Brudern versus Gessel. Brudern gets a better exit out of the outer chicane as they head down towards the bottom hill into Ravazza. Brudern gets a move done and dusted, but Lodmeyer might be in trouble here. I think it's in his best interest to let his McLaren go. It's mightily quick in a straight line, and he can work with Noah Reader here and still maintain what should end up being P5 in this race, as long as the gap between himself and Tinko van der Velde doesn't grow too severely. Noah Reader does make his way through. Lodmeyer under pressure from the likes of Huben. Malinowski now as well. White flag for Walsingham a bit further down. Brandon Ray is now into the pits. Drive through again for someone else on the penultimate lap of this race. Needs to switch back to Huben, very close to the gearbox. Carpenter versus Santama. Lamborghini losing out again. Damage, of course, on board that one. And continuing to fall further down the order. More penalties coming on through. We've now got a 10-second time penalty for Aidan Walsingham for that contact that sent this Lamborghini so far down the order. Nicholas Huber now sending it around the outside in towards Piratella. Lodmeyer does need to fight this one, and he's trying to hold off the Mercedes, but he could be in trouble down the start-finish straight. Where is George Boothby? He's about to start his final lap of the race. It's been an easy day for the British driver, who looks to add another one to his tally, but it is all on the line right now for Lodmeyer, trying to still claim his best results in the Pro Series, but he's got formidable names filling up his rear view mirrors. It's going to be one final drag race for the likes of Huben, Malinowski, Sherritt, all trying to see if they can move his way up the order. And anything that he can find, any opportunity. Can he force the Porsche offline in towards Ravazza? Not quite close enough. He's got Malinowski and that Ferrari to be a bit conscious of. Noah Reader has escaped a little bit up the road, and now the drag race between these cars all begin. Lodmeyer under pressure from the Mercedes, the Porsche, Ferrari flying on down. It looks like this Mercedes has a good amount of straight line speed. Huben closing the distance all the time. De Campo's made his way through on Carpenter, but it's going to get very busy here. Oh my goodness, I thought we were going to have a repeat of the instant from earlier. Lodmeyer defends the inside line. He's gone a little bit deep. Huben trying to go for the over and under, but he can't get it done. The door is shut. Malinowski now trying to come on through. He's side by side on the exit with Huben and the Genesis Esports Ferrari trying to surge his way through as well. Who's going to come on top here? A little bit of contact. This might give the space. A Lodmeyer needs to hold on to the position. Huben may have just dropped a bit too far back. The Ferrari now trying to go around the outside, almost onto the grass with Malinowski there. But Huben's still P9, Malinowski P10, Sherritt P11. As we check in with George Boothby, he just has a couple more corners to go, but Lodmeyer is second clear of these cars behind. He may be able to hold on to what will be at least P8. It should be P6 at the very least, with penalties by the end of this one. We'll see how it all plays out, but George Boothby, the winningest driver on the LFM platform, he starts season 13 in style and takes victory here at Imola for a dominant victory for the number 2 car. Fantastic stuff. Clean start to finish from the man that stuck it on pole. Bischoff's going to come through and take a well-deserved podium. Dario Imola is going to come through as well in P3 to round out the podium. There was a white flag for Philip Menard, but I think he's okay. Tinko van der Velde will take P4 on track, but penalties for him and Noah Reader further down the order. We'll see exactly how all these deltas play out in just a moment. Vanti Barry will finish P6 on track, and then these scraps with Noah Reader, Lodmeyer, who is going to hold off his train of cars. A fantastic drive from the Porsche. Huben trying to go, oh my goodness, has he run out of fuel? Lodmeyer's run out of fuel! Oh my goodness! Disaster for Lodmeyer at the very end, and he drops to P12. Oh my goodness, that is the most gutting thing I think I've ever seen. He loses all of those places right at the very end. Aidan Walsingham was also on the back of that train. I can't believe it. Oh, Lodmeyer, You poor soul. Jardier finishes in P15 after his surge through the field. De Campo wasn't quite able to make up any further position. Neil Niox crosses line in 25th. I can't believe what I've just seen. Paul Lobmeyer, an incredible drive from start to finish. But the smallest of misjudgments, we're talking meters in terms of the extra fuel that he needed. And that is just disastrous. I can't believe it. And I'm sure he is going to be absolutely gutted in the cockpit of that Porsche. He will take the positives, of course, from today for such a spectacular drive in such a competitive grid. But he is going to be fuming at the end of that one. What a disappointment for him. I don't think we had any more penalties dished out by the end of that one. And that is your race over and done with. My goodness. Drama, chaos, adrenaline, action-packed stuff from start to finish. Definitely one of the more feisty races that we have had in the Pro Series. And we'll look to have some interviews, of course, with drivers if they want to make their way over. Always a pleasure to talk to them after races like that. But my goodness, what an absolutely drama-filled one all the way at the very end. I cannot believe that for Paul Lobmeyer. He is going to be absolutely gutted. But I tell you what, someone that didn't run into drama for the entire race, George Boothby, adds another victory to his ever-growing tally in the Pro Series. Whilst we had chaos up and down the order, it did not surround your car, Mr. Boothby. Fantastic drive from you. You must be happy to start Season 13 in style.
Hell yeah, I'm so happy. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. I think there's a few guys who are feeling probably a lot more worn out than you at the front of the grid. But not to say that means it was an easy drive from your perspective. What was it like in your 296 throughout that one?
Well, I think most people know the Ferrari around here is a little bit of a pain. It doesn't handle curbs too well in comparison to other cars, but I've really worked on the setup and yeah, I put a lot of time into this, to be honest. I did a race yesterday, which is like the same conditions as this as well, so that was good practice. And yeah, yesterday went really well, so it gave me confidence for today. And the quali, like, we got pole, but I had to I had a little bit more time in the lap, and I think I just got lucky that other people also made mistakes. Right, it's very difficult to nail the lap around here, but that was like the key basically. And then a lot of people died at lap 1. At turn 1 as well. I don't really know exactly what happened, who was at fault, but all I know is I got about 4 seconds of rear damage, and that got me a bit nervous, because I think, again, out of a Ferrari thing is if you get rear damage, it doesn't really like it very much. But I think because there's not too much downforce heavy corners here, I was able to get away with it, and yeah, the pace was great. I just made sure I nailed my laps, managed my race where I needed. Decided to not fix it because we had a gap and might as well keep the gap. And yeah, just kept driving to the end, trying to avoid drive-throughs. So easy to get a drive-through around here, and yeah, we brought it home. Super happy that we got a win to start us out, and yeah, great start to the championship.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastically put together drive from you. You also found yourself in quite a comfortable spot in terms of pit strategies where you had that advantage. You kind of didn't have to go too aggressive in either direction. You could pit a fairly comfortable time. But yeah, Imola, such a hard circuit to consistently put in those laps around. But you did that one perfectly. It's a fun fact brought to you by the ever wonderful and informative Kylo in our chat over here. A 12th win for you in the Case King Pro Series. You may not be aware, but you're the winningest driver in the Pro Series over the course of your history in these seasons. So ever growing to that tally, and of course a perfect way to get Season 13 underway for you. And yeah, there was definitely a lot of drama and action on the first lap, but even with a small amount of damage, you got your head back down after that trip through the gravel. You got on with the job and dealt with it incredibly. So another commanding drive from you. Heading over into next week's round, we're going to be going onto Italian soil for a second week in a row, Misano. Any ideas how the Ferrari is going to be faring for that one? And what's the gut feeling heading into that race?
I generally have no idea, if I'm honest. I've driven this car for SRO last year, and I ended up winning it, but we only had 5 tracks, and the game's changed, updates. So although I've driven this car a lot, I guess. I'm really on most of the calendar. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to put in a lot of effort and just see how I go. I mean, I'm going to hope, with the custom BOP and everything, it's going to be hopefully very close, and yeah, we can be in for a shout for another good result. So yeah, thanks to Veloce, all the people watching at home in the Twitch chat for supporting, and yeah, hopefully I can do something good next week as well.
Absolutely. Well, if you can, as the additional information from Carlos come through, not only do you have the race win record, but you also have the most amount of poles and fastest laps in the Pro Series. So it's you're very much, you've got all of those tallies and statistics. Just the one thing that unfortunately hasn't quite come through for you just yet is the championship win. But in order to try to get that one under your belt, you've opened up season 13 in the best possible way to make that one happen and come your way at the end of this one. Of course, plenty of races left to go, but a fantastic way to get started for this season. Big congratulations to you, George, and big thank you also for joining us for an interview as well. Always great to talk to our race winners, and we shall look forward to seeing you at Misano next week, and best of luck for that one.
Cheers, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Take care, George.
Bye-bye.
Great stuff there to hear from our race winner from today, and an incredible performance from George Boothby. He maybe have had one of his quieter races in the Pro Series. He certainly had a lot of battles in that tally. Today was not quite one of them. It all got a little bit spooky at the beginning of this race, and even with that 4 seconds worth of damage that he had on the rear of his car, great to get these little fine details from the drivers when we do get to speak to them. Even with that in mind, he was still able to put together a mightily consistent performance through that one and get that 296 to behave around this tricky Imola circuit. Certainly was one that was difficult for a lot of guys in the grid this evening. Battle aplenty amongst all of our grid, but fantastic starts from George Boothby in this one. Your race results as they stand from this evening: Boothby ahead of Bischoff and Imola, rounding out your podium with Minar, Barrier taking 4th and 5th, with course Lonmar dropping down the order in the end. Huben, Malinowski, Sherratt. Lonmar finishes P90, I think it's still a personal best result for him. Tingo van der Velde at P10. Brudern, Gessel, Jardier in those positions heading towards the end of the top 15. 16th place went to Matty de Campo in the end. He has a bitty time. Karpinen as well. P17 with Manson, Neuwirth, Beatstalker, Innestroza, Santaba, Vassner, Narks, Tempest, Reyes, Martins, Polikov, Steinbrenner, and McCoskey going to the end of the top 30. And then your final 2 positions of finishers with Kolosov and Sharda, with Hutchinson, Rainier, Whitehead, Karekis, Foch, McCormack, Addison, and Schwartz, your DNFs from today. Some very, very big names. But for those drivers that had that time, of course, all of those drivers that unfortunately did have those DNFs, they have been in the series before, so they will be aware of this. But for those that are new to the world of the Pro Series, that we have 2 drop scores over the course of these 12 weeks. So your worst results of the season will be dropped, and as long as you then get those 10 solid results, they will be what build up your picture and score at the end of that one. So a frustrating day for some of those drivers, of course, very much for the reigning champion and last season final race winner, Dara McCormack, as a disaster for some of those drivers on the opening lap. But a big congratulations to George Boothby, the podium, and also all of those that persisted on through that race, because sometimes when you are hit with a tricky one like that, it's very easy to retire early on. But some of them, they got back into it and have come away with some decent points. And knowing the fine margins that we can have in the world of the Pro Series, it can still very much all come down to that at the end of the championship. What an incredible evening of action. Like I say, next week we will be heading to Misano, so another Italian circuit. We'll have to see whether the prancing horse is the one that wins again, or if it will go the way of someone else. But I want to say a big thank you to the incredible support this evening on this stream. Record breaking in every single dimension. We almost got, we got halfway towards in that next interval to 1,500 followers. If you did enjoy the action, the glorious chaos drama that we had this evening, do give a follow on the Twitch channel. It's incredible to have you all here, and I hope you enjoyed the race as much as I did. If you want to catch up with all of the races as well and catch some of those moments we couldn't quite see on the replay, do head over to the YouTube channel. Almost 4,000 of you over there now as well. to see all of what took place this evening. But my goodness, what a fantastic evening of action. A big warm welcome to all of you that have joined us here for the Pro Series in the world of LFM for the very first time. Because if this world is new to you and you fancy getting a bit involved in yourself, battling with some of these guys on track and getting involved in some other racing goodness, you can head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, get yourself signed up, get yourself a license. You can work your way up through the ranks and compete for some fantastic prizes over the course of the next 12 weeks, whether it be here in the Pro Series. You can get yourself involved in the daily racing, also other championships as well on the world of ACC, and of course we also have Assetto Corsa 1 very much integrated into the platform as well, where you can get yourself involved in Formula 3, touring cars, sports cars championships. Such a wide variety that platform provides, and the MX5 Cup, I imagine, if it's typical MX5 racing, which I'm sure it is, it will be nose to tail, bumper to bumper action and chaos start to finish. So basically like the Pro Series racing, really, but just a little bit slower, but certainly a fun one to get involved in. So do head over to that if you want to get behind the wheel yourself. If you want to keep up to date with all of the action-packed goodness, news, updates here at LFM, and also just be a part of this ever-growing community, you can also join our Discord server as well. We're a friendly bunch over here, where they'll just be sharing all good things in your life, your pets, your cars, sim racing, or real world. Then also do come on over. It'd be fantastic to have as many of you here as possible as we look to continue to grow this amazing platform and see all the exciting things that we have up ahead for 2024. It's going to be a great year, I am sure. This season is going to be nail-biting every single week, so do not miss the action. We are back same time, same place here for the round 2 of the Pro Series, where the action will be taking place at Misano for that one. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Look forward to seeing what we have to bring next week then. But for tonight then, it's goodbye.